This always turns out to be one of the most viewed videos on all of our sewing machines. But today we are learning how to clean and maintenance our Husqvarna Viking Brilliance 75Q. Plus, at the end, I'm going to recommend how often you should have it serviced at your local Husqvarna Viking store. But what you need to do on a regular basis, every time we sew, fabrics are linty, thread can be linty, batting, fleece, flannels, all those things are going to accumulate as lint underneath this throat plate. So I pulled out a few of the tools that you're going to need. I am a fan of taking the needle out because probably, I don't know when the last time I changed the needle, so I'm going to take it out, number one, for safety, and number two, because I probably need a new one. You are going to need your screwdriver because there is no screws on the throat plate here, but we do use it to lift and pop it up, so it's super easy to get in and out. Maybe a pack of needles close by, and that will make a difference. The brush comes with your machine. This is my go-to brush. It's one of those cute little dust-its. It's like the mini Swiffer for sewing machines. And do you notice we do not have canned air here? Canned air for a sewing machine is a big no-no. Repeat after me, no canned air. If that's just going to blow more in than out, and your service person is going to be handing you back a ball of lint from the back area of your machine if you do use canned air, and they're going to tell you stop. Okay, so here's what I would do if I'm cleaning out my machine. You can go ahead, take the bobbin out, and then just unthread the machine and then remove the needle. So you are going to need a screwdriver for that. If you have trouble getting your hands in here and you don't want that needle to fall, slide that up, loosen it, and see it catches that needle on its way out. This is also really handy when you go to put it back in because it's going to help hold the needle flat side to the back. And if your hands are bigger, this is going to be your go-to tool. All right, next, if you want to pull the foot off, don't worry about unscrewing it, but you can at least take the presser foot off of it. And now for the screwdriver. Okay, all you need to do is kind of take it underneath one of the corners here, or here, and just twist. That's how easy it is to take off. That should give you the momentum to do this often. So how often do we want to do this? You're probably going to notice, like if you ever get any skip stitches or maybe your thread breaks, that's because there's lint and dust interfering with the stitch being made. And so you do want to get in here probably every 3 to 5 bobbins and clean it out. Next thing, just take your finger, and this little horseshoe shape is going to just lift off. When we go to put it back in, you'll notice that there's a little kind of nub at the bottom. It's going to line up nice and even with the front of the machine and then just drop right back in. Okay, not sideways. There you go. Just like that, nice and flat. So that comes out, and the only other thing you need here is to reach in, and this entire bobbin case, yes, that is your bobbin case, comes out. Notice the 2 little points are pointing towards the back of the machine, so when we go to put that back in, that's how we're going to hold it, and it's going to nest in there only one way. So at this point, do not blow in here, of course, with your breath, but also don't use the canned air. You're going to take your brush, clean out all the little lints and things that you can get out of here, and that's why this comes in so handy, because you literally can go like that and it's clean. I mean, it's just so much easier. So we'll put a link to these little dust-its in the description below. People always ask me where to get those, so I will include that as well. Once it's cleaned, what we're going to do is reverse order. The bobbin case is going to go in first. Oh, there's a little lint on here, so I'm going to just clean that off. Just kind of give it a little clean up. Next, just go ahead and set it with those points facing back. There should be only one place it really lays truly flat. It's going to have a little rock back and forth when it's correct, but just make sure it doesn't get twisted. People do get this in sideways, and those points are kind of off. That should be your clue that that is not correct. So straight back, nice and flush, and just like that, it is where it should be. Little horseshoe guy next. That covers up and holds everything in place. And then the throat plate. Look right back here, there's a little nub on the back. So I'm going to line this up on the back edge right there, kind of flush, and then it's going to just push, use some force, click it back into place. At this point, you can do your bobbin. So click it into the tension. I love using that little cutter right here. And before I cut, I like to close the little cover over the top of it. That way it just holds that thread in position. Don't have to do it, it just makes it easy. And then it is so much easier to put your needle in when your foot is on. So do that next, and then take your new needle, flat side to the back, so I've positioned it in that little opening. And if you go right down into the foot, then straight up. Now, here's the thing about putting your needle in. You need to make sure that it gets all the way as high as it should go. And then when you go to tighten your screw to hold it in place, you need to not over tighten. So you need to kind of just do a little bit of tighten. But if you over tighten it, like you really crank on that, over time, it will no longer hold your needle in. And then you need a visit to your service center. So you need to tighten it just enough, but not too much. That's a hard one to describe, but I think once you do it a few times, you'll know what I'm talking about. Also, when you want to test to see if your needle got to the highest position, use your needle threader. If your needle threader does not line up with that eye, you know you should come back, make sure it goes all the way as high as it should be, and then go ahead and do a little test. So make sure your machine is correctly re-threaded, everything sounds good when you go to sew it out, and you know you've done that correctly. Okay, how often do we need to have a service? So when you're talking about a machine like this, it is best that you actually have it serviced once a year, whether you use it a lot or not. You really will find that your machine will last so much longer if it really gets the care it needs, kind of like your car. If you don't take your car in for a service and then you decide to drive 200 miles to your destination, things might not go as planned, especially if it's been a few years for service. You know what I'm talking about. When they go in and they clean, adjust, and oil all the parts inside. Did you notice we didn't oil anything? That's because Husqvarna Viking creates parts that are they self-lubricate. And that's just because of the space-age materials that they use in there. And they're not just plastic. They're like space shuttle plastic. Okay, so that's a little bit different than just plain old plastic that breaks. Okay, so just know that if you keep it cleaned and lint-free, things are going to work smoother. But internally, there are a lot of metal moving parts. That's the part that gets serviced and oiled and adjusted and fine-tuned so you have perfect sewing experiences for the following year. So just, hey, if you're going on vacation, that's a perfect time to have your machine serviced. Drop it off. Just know that when you get back, it will be waiting for you, ready to use. If you do a lot of sewing in the winter time, then maybe you put your annual service in the summertime. So it's never kind of in the way of when you want to use your machine. So how often? Every 3 to 5 bobbins. Get in and clean that out. If you have any issues like the thread breaking or something like that, get in and clean it. You kind of start to realize, and you can almost hear it, the more you use your machine, the more you're in tune with what its needs are, and you'll know to change the needle, clean out, and before you know it, you're always going to have smooth sewing on every time you sit down to sew. So I hope you'll check out all of our video tutorials to help you master your Husqvarna Viking Brilliance 75Q from start to finish.